The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog and join the Progressive Army.
Welcome, ladies, gentlemen, and gender nonconforming individuals to another episode of The Benjamin Dixon Show. Today is Friday, July 28th, 2023. Thank you so much for joining me. Presidential hopeful Ron DeSantis has responded to Florida Representative Byron Donalds' criticism, very mild criticism, of the language in the new Florida curriculum that states that Black people benefited from slavery by acquiring skills. This was his response to fellow Republican Byron Donalds.
At the end of the day, you got to choose. Are you going to side with Kamala Harris in liberal media outlets? Or are you going to side with the state of Florida? And I think it's very clear that these guys did a good job on those standards. It wasn't anything that was politically motivated. These are serious scholars. You've seen Dr. Allen out on TV talking about the stories, talking about his own family history and everything like that. So don't side with Kamala on that. Stand up.
So Ron DeSantis is now telling Black conservatives not to stand up for their Blackness, but rather stand up for his particular Florida curriculum. We'll have much more on this later in today's episode, but first, the headlines. The United States is facing the possibility of yet another government shutdown, this time the result of the far right-wing House Freedom Caucus waging a culture war attempting to defund all so-called woke federal funding.
We should not fear a government shutdown. Most of what we do up here is bad anyway. Most of what we do up here hurts the American people. Most of the American people won't even miss if the government is shut down temporarily.
That was the voice of Representative Bob Good, the congressman from Virginia's 5th Congressional District and also member of the House Freedom Caucus. House Republicans erupted into boos as Catherine Clark, the representative from the 5th Congressional District of Massachusetts, called out Republicans' recklessness with their latest attempt to shut down the government.
Funding our government is our basic job. The comments from the GOP conference about how we could go into a MAGA shutdown and it wouldn't matter are outrageous. And don't talk to us about standing for veterans when the GOP was the ones that have cut veterans' housing, has cut their health care, has said to our women, our active women, military women, said it is okay to ask our military women to fight.
Georgia Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, who is facing a possible public reprimand for displaying nude images of Hunter Biden during a recent congressional hearing, unironically called for California Representative Robert Garcia to adhere to the House's rules of decorum after calling out Greene over her anti-vax conspiracy theories.
But just like RFK and other conspiracy theorists, members of this committee continue to attack vaccines. Vaccines save lives. The pandemic cost us 1.3+ million Americans. It's the single largest, most devastating loss of life event that we've had in the modern era.
Mr. Chairman.
Loss of life we've had in the modern era.
Ms. Reed, please pause for a second.
I'd like to make a point of order and ask the members to be reminded of the rules of decorum.
What rules are those?
What rules of decorum, indeed. And during a congressional hearing on whether or not the government should ban gender-affirming care for all trans adults, Representative Sheila Jackson Lee from the 18th Congressional District of Texas utilized her time to make this statement.
But I will not sit here and allow the trans community to be abused and in essence to be rejected. And for someone somewhere, let me say, your life is worthwhile.
And finally, former President Donald Trump, who is facing his 3rd and 4th potential indictment, is facing new charges in the Mar-a-Lago classified documents case after new allegations have emerged that he ordered his staff at Mar-a-Lago to erase the servers containing surveillance footage. This, ironically, after years of Donald Trump alleging that the DNC and the Hillary Clinton campaign did the same.
Where is the server? How come the FBI never got the server from the DNC? Where is the server? I want to see the server. Let's see what's on the server. Now, I don't know how the FBI can investigate something if the DNC, the Democrats, refuse to give the server.
Both Washington, D.C. and Fulton County, Georgia are preparing for potential violence with the 3rd and 4th potential indictments of Donald Trump looming. These are just some of the headlines for today, Friday, July 28th, 2023. Also on this day in Black history, July 28th, 1917, An estimated 15,000 Black Americans marched without words in New York City in what is known as the Silent Parade. The Silent Parade was in response to lynchings, murders, and every form of violence inflicted upon Black Americans at the hands of whites and known white supremacists across the nation. However, the immediate events which precipitated this impressive protest were the lynchings in Memphis, Tennessee of L. Persons, the Waco horror of Jesse Washington, and the race riots of East St. Louis in May and July of 1917. These riots resulted in the murder of 40 Black Americans. The protest march was organized by the NAACP, church, and community leaders. Leading the silent parade were children dressed in white, followed by women dressed in white, ending with men dressed in black. And although the protest was silent, participants carried signs with various messages, including, "We march because we deem it a crime to be silent in the face of such barbaric acts." They also had signs that stated, "We march because we want our children to live in a better land." Black Boy Scouts handed out informational flyers to onlookers as the participants marched silently to the cadence of muffled drums. The Silent Parade, July 28, 1917. For more Black history facts, go to blackheritagedays.com, where you can get access to 366 days of Black history provided by none other than my friend and my brother, Dr. Carl Mack, who I consider to be the people's historian. When we come back, Black conservatives are speaking out against Ron DeSantis' revisionist history in the state of Florida, and the DeSantis campaign is attacking. They have attacked these Black conservatives who dared to speak up for their Blackness. We'll be back right after this break.
I'm in sync with the earth, 10 toes deep, flower child from the turf. I never switch sides, like even when I die, I'm a ride for the squad, let her ties in the hearse. I've been on a vibe, kinda hard to describe. I'm in between, I'm good and it's fine, but I'm tired of the grind. Then I come alive in the night to realize I'm in the middle of the time of my life. I'm never so packed for the stack, never lied on the rap, got a bag from the way that I write it. Queen looking Tyson, do that ass survive, doing 80 to the house, then I hit it.
Welcome back to The Benjamin Dixon Show. Visit us online at thebenjamindixonshow.com.
Yep. Welcome back. Welcome back. I must admit that I have changed my opinion and my take on the Black conservatives that are standing up against this revisionist history, this insult to injury, this tip, this consolation prize for slavery, which was at least Black folks acquired some skills. I think it is revisionist history, and I think it is the attempt to, the cruelty is the point, right? I think they enjoy pouring salt into the open wound that is America's original sin. And my original take was almost to just say, you know what, Black conservatives, I told you so. And you know what, I can admit when I needed to shift and change a little bit, because despite the fact that I disagree with the politics of these Black conservatives, probably I'd say a good 75 to 80% clip, I disagree with them. But I have to admit, I can't help but to be extremely proud of the fact that when the rubber met the road, these not all Black conservatives, I still have to see what Candace Owens is going to say. She has me blocked on Twitter, so I don't know. She probably has already come down on the side of Ron DeSantis. But these Black conservatives, Byron Donalds, who I have never said a kind thing about, I have to admit that I am proud of this brother taking a stand against Ron DeSantis at the risk of his own career. The rest of Byron Donalds' politics suck. He still supports Donald Trump. But when it came down to his Blackness, he said, no, I'm going to draw the line here. And so I salute that brother, even if it's in a limited sense. But I want you to listen to this clip of Ron DeSantis as he was asked by a reporter specifically about Byron Donalds. And I want you to listen to how he simply suggests that Byron Donalds should get in line, stop following Kamala Harris, and stand up for this revisionist history in the state of Florida.
We heard Byron Donalds, though? He was critical of that particular piece. This little dust-up between the campaign and Byron Donalds. Is that helpful, though?
So, at the end of the day, you got to choose. Are you going to side with Kamala Harris and liberal media outlets? Or are you going to side with the state of Florida? And I think it's very clear that these guys did a good job on those standards. It wasn't anything that was politically motivated. These are serious scholars. You've seen Dr. Allen out on TV talking about the stories, talking about his own family history and everything like that. So don't side with Kamala on that. Stand up.
Don't side with Kamala on that. Stand up for Florida. He's not siding with Kamala Harris. I can certainly tell you that. If you ask any black conservative what they think about Kamala Harris, they are not siding with Kamala Harris, Ron DeSantis. They're siding with their blackness. They're siding with the reality that under no circumstances should we try to cast a single facet of slavery in a positive light. You even have Senator Tim Scott, who came out and said the exact thing, that there's no reason for anyone to try to cast a single component of slavery as something positive. And listen, have you ever heard me say something positive about Tim Scott? But I would be remiss. It would be a shame on my blackness if I allowed my disdain for all of the rest of their politics to make me ignore the fact that in this moment, they are speaking the truth. Listen to this clip. I apologize for the quality of the audio. It's a little difficult to hear, but if you listen closely, Tim Scott is speaking the truth.
As a country founded upon freedom, the greatest deprivation of freedom was slavery. There's no silver lining in freedom, in slavery. The truth is that anything you can learn, that any benefits that people suggest you had during slavery, you would have had as a free person. What slavery was really about separating families, about mutilating humans, and even raping their wives. It was just devastating. So I would hope that every person in our country, and certainly running for president, would appreciate that. And listen, people have bad days. Sometimes they regret what they say, and we should ask them again to clarify their positions.
Well, they did ask him again. And see, this is where I start parting ways with my conservative brothers and sisters. I part ways with them because they are giving Ron DeSantis too much of the benefit of the doubt. Byron Donalds' criticism of this curriculum was very tepid. It was a slight disagreement. If there was 99% agreement, there was only 1% of disagreement, and yet and still it was enough for the DeSantis campaign to come out full-throated against them. I mean, the number of people who call this man a sellout. Now, I've called him a sellout myself. I'm not even going to front. But to see white Republicans calling this black man a sellout, these two black men sellouts because they stood up for their blackness, you just have to forgive me. I just could not possibly sit back and not say something about that. But to Tim Scott's point, he said that there is literally nothing that black people may have acquired during slavery that they could not have acquired in freedom, and that there is no silver lining in slavery. Where I disagree with Tim Scott on, and Ron DeSantis disagrees with them also, is the fact that we should give them another chance to answer. Well, Ron DeSantis got another chance to answer. He was asked by another reporter at the same event. And this time, Ron DeSantis got upset because, well, two reasons. One, how dare anyone question the Fuhrer? And number two, well, Ron DeSantis is just a small, petty man who's not ready for prime time. Listen in.
Were there beneficial aspects to slavery?
That's not what the curriculum says.
What do you think?
No, it's not. And the curriculum is very clear. You have, I think it's like 200 plus pages of all kinds of stuff that you can't read that. Have you read it?
So what's your opinion?
Have you read it?
I'm asking your opinion.
But you haven't read it, so I'm just making that clear. That makes it very clear about the injustices of slavery in vivid detail. So anyone that actually read that and then listens to Kamala would know that she's lying. And that particular provision about the skills, that was in spite of slavery, not because of. The AP course has made that same point. Other courses have made that same point. Nobody said anything about that. And Dr. Allen and those people will say, look, this is what was used post-bellum when these folks were doing stuff. So that was very, very clear, and I would just say, people can read it, but they did a very good job on it, and there can be no confusion about where they would come down on that.
He keeps referencing Dr. Allen. This is the guy the black man who's gone across Fox News and so many other platforms to defend Ron DeSantis, but completely ignores the fact that there are plenty of black conservatives who have a problem with this language very directly to state under any circumstances that there was a benefit to the cruelty of chattel slavery in the United States of America is a slap in the face. And as black conservatives are standing up for their blackness, white Republicans are trying to whip them back into submission, whip them back onto the plantation of the Republican Party. And, forgive me for using the same language that they try to use as it pertains to black people who might be progressive. They always like to say that black people who are not a part of the Republican Party are somehow on the plantation of the Democratic Party. Well, this is really plantation and slave master behavior coming from Ron DeSantis. He is refusing to acknowledge that there are high-ranking Republicans in his party, black Republicans in his party, who absolutely take issue with every bit of this language about there being a benefit to black people from slavery. Yet he regularly goes and says, I have a black friend who still supports me. Well, sure. I'm sure you're going to get Candace Owens to support you as well. Right. But at least that there are black conservatives with enough integrity, enough soul in their blackness to stand up to you, even at the risk of their careers. Now, I might regret this in the next week because they're going to say something that I'm going to have to slam them on. I know Byron Donalds is going to say something. He's going to come out supporting Donald Trump. They're going to come out with some of their anti-vax messaging. They'll come out with some of their anti-science, anti-climate change, anti-trans talking points. So I'm sure I'm going to regret this next week. But as it stands right now, they are on the right side of this, and Ron DeSantis and his campaign think that they are big enough to tell black Republicans to get in line. Now, I want to play one last clip on this story because I think this individual, Giselle Clark, she's a black conservative, and I hope I don't regret playing this next week because I've seen her on Fox News attacking wokeness. Okay. Yes, but a broken clock can be right. And this clip that I'm going to play for you, I think is absolutely sound. The comparison is apt. You do not get to flex any skills that were learned from trauma. Trigger warning, this clip contains references to sexual assault.
So I've been thinking about this whole Florida education standards thing. If you were sexually assaulted as a minor, repeatedly for years and years and years, and then you claim that your sexual assault made you a better lover, it would mortify people. That's why it's mortifying to hear people say that you benefit from slavery in any way, because learned things from trauma is not a flex. It just ain't.
It's not. That's that on that. And while I was really hesitant about playing this particular clip because of the comparison to sexual assault, truth of the matter is sexual assault was a feature of chattel slavery. It was a standardized feature of slavery in this country. And so I think the comparison is apt, even if it is difficult to hear anyone suggesting that there is a benefit that should be derived out of a sustained trauma should be ashamed of themselves. And Ron DeSantis and his entire campaign should be equally ashamed of themselves for attacking these black conservatives for standing up for truth.
to The Benjamin Dixon Show.
Yep.
Visit us online at thebenjamindixonshow.com.
Welcome back. Yep. Welcome back. Tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we will be having our next patron party. So for those of you who have been patiently waiting, the next patron party, it is happening tonight, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You could be a patron of the Benjamin Dixon Show, patreon.com/the BPD Show, or you could be a patron of Like It or Not with Rebecca Azor and DJ Exclusive. That is patreon.com/Like It or Not. If you're a patron of either one of those shows, you get access to tonight's patron party. It is always a blast. It's for grown folks. You know what I mean? It's not something for young kids and whippersnappers. That's how you know how old I am. Whippersnappers. But I digress. I want to play a clip of Representative Nancy Mace, who is being called out by so many Republicans and conservatives this morning because of her unfortunate too much information moment that took place at a prayer breakfast. And it honestly could not have happened at a worse place. I'm not defending her. She's a conservative, so I have very little reason to defend her. But I want to play the clip. I want you to hear it. And then I want to discuss the kind of backlash that she's getting from a bunch of conservative men this morning.
And when I woke up this morning at 7, I was getting picked up at 7:45. Patrick, my fiance, tried to pull me by my waist over this morning in bed. And I was like, no, baby, we don't got time for that this morning. I got to get to the prayer breakfast and I got to be on time. And a little TMI, but he can wait. I'll see him later tonight. But I was here early.
Generally speaking, all rules of decorum have been thrown out. Let me start my discussion there. Like, that is way too much information, especially at a prayer breakfast. Like, come on, you have to know better. But what I think Nancy Mace doesn't realize is that she is in a party who will target her the way they are targeting her this morning, calling her out, calling her a fake Christian, calling her a sinner, calling her all these things. Really just outright, giving her scarlet letter A. This is the reaction that you are getting from overwhelmingly conservative men. And of course, you're going to always have some women, conservative women, who are willing to do the bidding of the patriarchy, just like you have some black conservatives who are willing to do the bidding of white supremacy, because that's just the way of the world that we live in right now. But I hope for the sake of the future that more women can see the clear hypocrisy of having men who are 100% participants in every bit of sin, every bit of debauchery, every sexual assault case, every case of children being molested, whether they're molested by priests in the church, whether they're molested by school teachers, whether they are overwhelmingly men. The 99.9% of them are men, and they are some of the same men who are trying to lecture Nancy Mace this morning, the same men who are voting against women's rights, the same men who are trying to control women's bodies, the same men who are trying to usher in this new Puritan era where they get to pretend as though they are religiously devout and pious and they live. You even have Andrew Tate. Let me just give you the extreme of what's happening right now. Andrew Tate, who is currently under arrest in Romania for sex trafficking charges, for rape and sex trafficking charges, his new position, his new rebrand, he's now an anti-degenerate. He's now actively condemning any sex workers, any woman who is showing parts of her body that he doesn't approve of. He's really trying to take this position of women should be more modest. Well, what about the women that you sexually assaulted, my guy? Are you saying that if they had been more modest, you would not have sexually assaulted them or sexually trafficked them? You have people like Sneeko, this influencer guy who is all over the place now condemning black culture, right? You have him who is condemning all of the degenerate behavior from women. Meanwhile, he's got porns out there that he starred in where he allowed his woman to have sex with someone else while he watched. Just Google the Sneako chair, Sneako chair. He has a whole entry in the Urban Dictionary because of his debauchery, but they have now been able to rebrand themselves to be morally pious and in these seats of righteous indignation, right? They get to condemn women. And there's a fascinating thing that happens in this country where men who commit the acts of debauchery get to turn around and now become men who condemn the very acts of debauchery that they participated in, mind you, that they sponsored, that they flew all the women out to their yachts to have these nights of debauchery. But now that they're tired of this branding, or this branding has become inconvenient for them because they're facing sex charges, sexual assault charges, now they've turned and started to lecture women and tell them to how they should dress. And they're condemning the likes of Nancy Mace. Well, I hope Nancy Mace and other Republican women realize before it's too late, before they wake up in the Republic of Gilead under his eye. The state of Texas, the Houston Independent School District, they're moving away from the prison to school to prison pipeline and going straight to the prison. They have decided in the state of Texas, Houston, the Houston Independent School District, they are eliminating librarians at 28 school districts, and they are turning the libraries into discipline centers where children with bad behavior will be sent to be locked down throughout the day. This is yet another step towards the destruction of our public school systems, towards the vilification that is necessary to treat our children even more like prisoners than they're already being treated. It's not as though these schools are necessarily great places for our students to thrive and be happy, but that's not enough for Houston. They are deciding to do away with their libraries, firing the librarians, and they're going to use those facilities to discipline children with bad behavior. And I guarantee you that the students who are going to be targeted the most, just like in any other scenario we see across this country, it's going to be three groups. It's going to be Black children, impoverished children, and children with mental health needs. That is always the case in this country. When we see the vilification of poverty, we see the vilification of Blackness, and we see the vilification, the criminalization of people with mental health issues, we know that it also applies to our children. And so as the state of Texas, Governor Greg Abbott, as they embark on all of their draconian and downright fascist policies, this is just another part. This is just another piece in the puzzle that they are trying to assemble all across this country that is going to be nothing more than a theocratic fascist police state. We think there's some of my comrades who former comrades, because, they don't really consider me a comrade anymore, but that's their problem. They think that America is so bad now, bad enough for some of them to be supportive of Vladimir Putin and supportive of an accelerationist mentality of burning this country to the ground and hoping that something will emerge from the ashes. They take that position because they think America is so bad now. The sick and sad irony of it is that if we allow the Republicans to gain any more power, in fact, if we not only don't hold the line here, but push these fascists back into the dregs of society, we are going to see in short order exactly how bad this place can really become. This is not hyperbole. Every indicator that we are seeing across this country suggests that we are quickly moving into an era of a complete and total theocratic fascist state under the control of Christian nationalism. So we cannot look at what's happening with Moms for Liberty as they attack the school boards all across this country, as they remove school board superintendents, particularly black superintendents all over this country, as they start installing puppets that support the agenda of people like Ron DeSantis. Like, that's the agenda that's happening all around this country. We cannot look at the reality of what's happening and sit back and believe that things will get better if we first allow them to get worse. That is completely absurd. Patrons, no bonus show, but we will see you tonight at the patron party. Everyone else, patreon.com/the BPD show. And if not, I'll see you Monday.
The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.patreon.com/the BPD show and support The Benjamin Dixon Show. If you like this episode, be sure to share, like, and subscribe.